Right, Liam here. So a bit more progress on the transistor line stage boxy thingamajobby. I'm going to start calling it the transistoriser because I guess that's what it does. It's going to sort of add what you'd expect from an early transistor amp kind of sound. You look at like the early transistor stuff. Now, there was an odd crossover era where there's various reasons why you had these hybrid designs with both valves and transistors. In some of the more low-end manufacturers were using up the stock of valves either they had or had brought cheap, and other things were because there wasn't the transistors available yet that could actually replace some of the valves. Some of the high speed or higher voltage types of transistors didn't run up to the job yet. But then there was also the people designing the circuits hadn't quite got their heads around how to use the transistors or get them to operate the way they wanted yet. So there's some interesting crossover stuff. But anyway, if you ever look at like the early transistor gain stages, they were all very much like this single-ended or like cascaded stages, but very little feedback, a couple of stages running some gain. If they had feedback, wasn't quite as much as they thought because they didn't actually have the gain they originally had calculated due to device limitations. Anyway, that's outside the scope of today. But yeah, anyway, it sort of led to a sound of that early transistor era, and this kind of replicates that, what you'd have found inside an old amplifier. So it's, several passes through here should make some interesting effects, as it were. So anyway, here's the board. I finally got it. So this is the germanium stage, this side, 2 germanium stages, that's 2 silicon stages. Interesting with germaniums is they're so bloody leaking all over the place. So if I come out here a bit, right, so here's the collector voltage. Now, both these stages have a single bias in it where they both share it, so they get an identical bias. If I probe the bases of these transistors, that slight difference is the amount of current the actual bases are drawing. The bottom end of that resistor is directly connected to the bias network. It comes along the track and connects to the same one. So that's just minor differences in base current due to the gain and stuff in the transistor and leakage. But this side I had to change this transistor because I want somewhere around, so let's put it on the resistor just for... So I ideally would have liked about 6.15 because I've got 12.2 volts. The final voltage is going to be a bit different but anyway. So yeah, this stage is pretty good. This is right where the prototype design was sort of ending up. This one, not far off now. You're going to get some large variation with germaniums, but the original transistor I had in here was pushing up to 9 volts. It was just no good at all. So it had to go. But in comparison, I've not bothered matching these silicon transistors at all. They're just the first ones I got pulled out of the bag. 5.18 on that collector, 5.22 within 0.4 volts, 0.04 volts of each other. Just shows germanium drift for you. But anyway, so it's now the gain stage finished. So I have input transistor. It's basically mirror image. 0 volt rail comes in, splits across both sides. So this is sort of like going to be a star point, as it were. Input stage, output transistor, and the same on the silicon side. So got a couple of capacitance multipliers to build next. I'm going to buy this little 6VA transformer in series, so the final DC voltage will be about 24 volts, so I can have 2 capacitance multiplier stages. The ripple should be immeasurable. I should be able to put my scope on it and all I should see is the noise my scope generally has on the AC setting. So yeah, anyway, just a little update. I just thought this was just making me chuckle, really. Just these Driftomatic germaniums. Oh, these things were terrible. I feel sorry for the blokes that had no choice but to use these. So you imagine being the design tech for like a big radio or television company, and they're saying, they're pressuring you to use silicon because they want to sell next year's model as an all solid state telly. And you just imagine some group of poor old engineers up in the early hours pulling what little hair they had out left, trying to bloody make these circuits work and make them reliable. I feel sorry for the blokes. They did some incredible work though back then. I bet when silicons came out, they were probably jumping around the bloody workshop, dancing and drinking, just in sheer joy of not having to use these crapomatic germaniums anymore. But yeah, anyway, joy of electronic history. But they do have their place, and they work slightly differently to silicon, and as a result of that, they sound slightly different. So yeah, look, bang on 6, yeah, 0.7 volts, 0.04 volts difference. So yeah, anyway, so a bit more to do. I think I've done enough for tonight. I'm going to watch a bit of telly, go to bed, and do the power supply tomorrow, and hopefully maybe get these mounted in the chassis and start some wiring. But yeah, anyway, just a little update. As always, thanks for watching, and catch you next time.